Hi, I'd like to speak for just a moment about known associates. Partnership, joint venture, alliance. No matter how we refer to it, it comes down to teaming. And by teaming, be it national alliances, corporate syndicates, or wolf packs, we are stronger. What you're about to see will describe a little bit more about the teaming process when it comes to building your business. Making it not a small business doing one or just a few small or minor things, but actually teaming or aligning with other companies complementary to what you do in order to perform as a larger entity, while you still operate a small business.
Welcome, everybody. I am really excited to have you all here tonight. And to follow up on something she just said, because I hear this a lot. Well, I don't really want to do business with the government. So, I don't know how you can help me. Well, I've been involved in helping to bring together the women's contracting program that we currently have the 5% goaling for many, many years. And so I started years ago in doing so, and through that time learning more and more and more about the struggles and why there were so many issues with awarding contracts into the government, you found that you had a bureaucracy in that government, and they were mandated to do work with small businesses. And so therefore you have a small business that is usually 90% of the time, because the very first business I had, I ran it this way, flying by the seat of their pants. Okay, and so at that point, how is it that you're going to connect a bureaucracy and a small business that has to do everything, okay? And so therefore, we started working more towards educating them on the systems that they could develop in order to operate small business-wise a business instead of actually just owning a job, because that's going to help in the long run for their exit strategy, for their growth, for their preparation to go to whatever level they choose to go to. And so therefore, that's why whenever you hear anything, oh, that's Kaye Mitchell, she works with people who want to contract with the government. Well, no, I work with small businesses that want to contract, because that's where you get the business. And so therefore, there's a purpose behind what the requirements are now. We've molded the government into a little better place, not to say there's still not a heavy bureaucracy and really hard when you're a small business to educate them on why things are more difficult. However, through a teaming process that I was involved with women all over the country, this is what we had worked to develop since, oh my goodness, I started in '95 working on this. So I've been doing it a long time. So if that helps you understand a little bit more, there's also a reason that I always educate people on the government as well as the private, is because you don't want all your eggs in one basket. So just to kind of nip that fallacy in the bud. I know that doesn't have as much to do with teaming, but now I'll move on and I'll explain a little bit more about the teaming process, because that's pretty critical for the growth of your business too. So I'm going to start off with just throwing out a few names here. I mean, a few words. Consortia, team, partner, joint venture, groups, syndicate, subprime, sub, alliance, franchise, affiliation, coalition, pact, union, and on and on and on, all mean teaming. That is all unique ways and unique phrases of putting out that you are in a team, you're pursuing a team. And so basically the way that I try to encourage small businesses, and have for many years, is if you are a team, that is what makes you a big business, because you can take complementary services based on whatever your industry normally provides in a contract or is being asked to provide in a contract, that maybe prevents you from getting that contract because you're not capable, maybe your size is restrictive, but if you had partners and you could all come together and create a team that was synergistic and could move forward and pursue contracts as that team, not jump from team to team, but actually create a team, then you all of a sudden have created your own corporation at a very large level, but you get to still compete at a small business level because you're all small businesses, okay? And so that is the main reason why I look at teaming on the government side. For sure, I say that because they are pursuing small businesses. On the private sector side, they have different indicators as to what they would consider a small business, but they normally are going more towards the goals of looking to find their stockholders or shareholders want them to engage women-owned businesses. They want minority-owned business. They want veteran-owned business. They want service-disabled-owned. And so they have goaling still in the private sector, not just at a government level. Government levels are mandated. It's the main difference. But starting many years ago, in fact, I have a quote that I learned years and years and years ago from listening to someone speak, and I can't even remember this person's name. It was a marketing guru from one of the IT, digital or something at that point in time. But basically, he was trying to encourage everyone at that point that we are moving into an age of networked competence. And I've always loved that because that is exactly, and this was back in '97. Okay, that was long before the internet was created. Okay. Anyway, so it was long before the current systems that we now know where we're doing global business, whether we recognize it or not. Okay, everything through the internet has globalized anything that you do right here in Colorado Springs. Okay, and so that is what I always like to reference when I'm speaking with teams, because it's actually, when you're looking for a team member, you're looking for a few things. And so those are the key tips and the pointers that I'm going to start expressing to you. Number one, you want to make sure that you have done your research on your teaming partners to know that they operate in a similar fashion as you. They have the same morals. They have the same ideals. They have the same vision, perhaps, because as you come together as a team, you're going to hear some examples I'm going to give you here shortly where if you are a team, you are going to have to create and develop your own separate plan. Now, you're still operating your company and your business, but you're actually a part of a greater, larger force at that point in time to pursue contracts. So you'll go about your day-to-day efforts yourself for your local area, where the team can all start looking for a venture that the entire team can participate in. And so everyone can pursue contracts in a different manner. You'll all have different networks. You'll all have different connections with corporations, agencies, buyers that are out there that you're already selling to. And so it's a way of introducing. So obviously, it's like hiring someone into your company. You want a team that you feel solid about introducing to anyone, because it's your head on the block for that referral at that point in time. And so those are the things that you want to start looking at when you're getting serious about a team. Well, obviously, they're going to look at the same things for you. And so it's really critical at that point, when you start to venture into a team, that you are at a place in your own company where you have it organized and developed to have systems. Even if you're the one doing all the systems, you at least have the systems that have been developed and are in place for you to delegate should you get a large contract and be forced into that next level overnight, which can happen depending on what happens. So if you are prepared that way and you know that you're functional and you have these systems in place, next thing you want to look at is the metrics of how you make sure that everything is functioning well. Again, even if it's you that sits down at the end of the month, does your final month-end reports, do it, and you're looking and saying, wow, you know what, here's what I anticipated hitting sales-wise at the end of this month, and I'm not there. And so I need to look back at what did I do differently? What was it that I intended to do? Any of those those are metrics for you to be able to go back and review what was your plan, what worked, and what needs to change or be tweaked just a little bit along the way, okay? And so those are all things that you want to have in place for yourself. So also, when you're seeking a teaming partner, you want to have someone who has those same metrics, those same systems in play. Because if you do have a large contract and everyone is not pulling their weight, even if you have a small contract and everyone is not pulling their weight, then you're going to lose face value with whoever that contract is with, or you're going to be doing double, triple work, or maybe even double, triple investment. And I have seen that happen. I've seen it happen and go south when somebody had a formal joint venture where they were trying to assist a partner who actually had the ability with goals. And they were trying to mentor them, and the person just really did not have in place what it took to do that contract. So the partner ended up doing a lot more on the contract, a lot more money was invested, there were a lot more delays, so they were delayed in the end of being able to get it on time unless they did overtime. So it can definitely backfire if you're not prepared and looking forward for a teammate that is actually fit to be part of your team, because they operate at the same level that you expect and that you do, okay? So those are all things to look at. Now, when you're looking at this, one of the harder parts of a team actually has getting 4 or 5 different individuals who are owners of companies together and doing it in a cooperative fashion. So it's really more about leadership on that team than it is ownership. Because you don't want to have any one individual who's just speaking on behalf of the team constantly, or the owner of all of the database information. So there's a lot of shared things on some of these teams. Some are simpler. Some of them will develop into a point where you have to determine databases, software perhaps that you'd be sharing, networks across the board, and basically what you're looking for is that synergistic. If someone places the order for whatever your team is providing, or if you bid a contract and win it for whatever the delivered item or service is for that, what is the method of taking it from the order to the delivery process, okay? On time and hopefully under budget, so that your profit is a little bit better. But those are all things within that team that you're going to be looking at, is to determine what part is everybody going to play. And so I bring that up because you'll probably have complementary industries, and sometimes you may have competitive. But the key is, on certain contracts, someone does have to take the lead because they'll have more knowledge about whatever that contract is about. It could be that that's the major product or service for that, and you'll be support for whatever that product or service is, okay? So all these things are really critical on a team for you to discuss, square one, and put into writing, because you really don't want to just do this verbally and shake somebody's hands and expect that, you know, everybody's going to remember what was done. And then as things in time develops, you probably are even going to take it to even more levels of where you'll have attorneys involved in order to review certain things if you have them documented. All of it can develop over time. It may not be that you have to expend the money for attorneys on the front end, although the very first thing that you would want to do before a meeting of any kind for safety's sake is that you're going to want to make sure that there's a non-disclosure and a non-compete agreement everyone is comfortable with signing, that is signed at that very first meeting. And that just is, it allows the information to flow better, it allows you to feel better. But the other indication for me when I'm working with people on a team is also, how does meeting with that person make me feel? And as women, I know, you know, we tie in probably more to our gut feeling and our intuition. And it's really critical. If there is the slightest bit of something going on before you start disclosing too much information within a team, you're going to want to kind of meet again and explore a little bit more, explore operations. You want to be able to find out from your team, are they willing to share a generalized budget? They don't have to give you the details, but you want to see what their generalized business plan is, so that you can understand that they're either meeting or exceeding it, or they've actually even implemented it. Because a lot of times People have a plan, but they don't necessarily have anything implemented at that point in time. So these are all really critical on the business side for initiating a team. Okay, so those are all a lot of points that are thrown in together there. But I do want to expand a little bit more on value propositions of teams, because sometimes people really don't recognize the additional values, not just contracting can bring. And so I'm going to give you a couple of different examples, a couple that we're very familiar with. Airlines have been teaming for a very long time, going in and out of markets, because a lot of times it's difficult. Number one, if they don't have any gate space, they're not going to be able to enter that particular market. But if they're actually coming from Canada or overseas or out of the country somewhere, you know, they're looking for a partner because there are different regulations. There are different things that have to be not only purchased or licensed or handled by an airline within the United States, different from another country, but there's regulatory things that they're just not as familiar with, that they would rely on a partner to do. Vice versa, an American partner may be looking to go out of country in an airline, and they're looking for that same thing. So that's been going on for a long time. What works with that? Single point of purchase. If they're partnering airlines and you buy a ticket from one place. You don't have to buy a ticket here and then another ticket from this airline and then another here. The other seamless thing usually is baggage. Now, not to say that we haven't all had some lost baggage probably, but that's supposedly, you know, for the most part, 95% of the time, it is seamless. And so therefore, once you have checked in and gone through security, it doesn't matter if you're going to transfer 2 or 3 different times to different airlines at that point. It's all seamless to you at that. So that is one example we've all been witness to for a very long time. Another example is the retail construction side, and how things have changed over the years when it comes to the drop shipping, so that there's not as many large warehouse storages. And this has really opened the door for small business as well, especially on the construction side or a product side, where you don't have to store products if it's part of the service you're offering. You can have it drop shipped to the direct job site. And so this happens in construction, and by that I'm not even just talking building construction, computer networking, manufactured products. There's a lot of times where you're going to get a portion of it manufactured here and a portion of it manufactured here, and then it comes to a small business owner in Colorado who puts the two pieces together, so they're technically a manufacturer still. So you have all those synergistic parts within that system that you need to make sure. So that's your team also, your vendors. Who are you using? And who are the people who are going to be shipping that product in the long run? All still part of a team, okay? So that's another example of it. No, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of really successful ones that clients of mine have had. I have a lady who I've worked with for several years, and she has an unusual product that is in a male-dominated industry of the wastewater and sewer renovations and sealing and so on and so forth. And so there's a lot that happens within that industry, and she actually provides the chemicals that conceal the inside of pipes and so forth. And so she became a part of a team that she actually was the only one on that team who had any experience in doing government contracting. I believe there's 5 businesses total within this team. And with her particular experience that way, plus she was a woman-owned business, there were others on this team. There was actually a veteran-owned and then minority-owned. So there were actually some other goaling for the federal side for sure that were going to be beneficial to the team. So she agreed that since she already knew how to research for federal contracts, that's the direction she was going to go. The rest of them agreed, here's my contacts, here are my sources, here's my resources, so I'll look for contracts in this area of the industry. You can look for contracts in this area of the industry, and they split it all up. But when it came to an oversight of the federal. They actually found that there were quite a few more contracts that she could get them federally. And the amount of time she was going to have to expend into researching, they wanted to monetize that. So they gave her, out of the team, they said, here's what we'll do. Any government contract that is of a certain size, we will go ahead and bonus you a small percentage of the profit in the end. And then, of course, everybody else gets their split based off of the teaming agreement and whatever work they've performed. And so she is still in that. And the other key is that she has products that she actually has labeled that have now been introduced broadly across the country through this teaming consortium of her own, okay? And so that's one example of something successful. Another one is a company that I know that does snow removal. And they actually are part of a syndicate, is what they had termed it when I first met up with them, that is national. And this syndicate is regionally based, a whole bunch of different snow removal companies that, by coming together and formalizing the syndicate with a legal entity name, they actually chose that, they purchase products at a huge discounted level because they're buying it for all of them. Okay, and so number one, that's increased their profits, which is great. Number two, it's a field that you just really don't know how bad your winter's going to be. So you're doing the best you can to plan, but you can only gauge, based off of what your past history is and what the weather's telling you, or Farmer's Almanac, or however you get that information. And so therefore, they support each other. When a huge snowstorm happens, they can move equipment from region to region to the nearby areas. And so what this has done is it's made each one of them, for that end user, less of a risk. And because they know they can handle any kind of snow removal there is. So do you think that these guys are getting more and more and more of the contracts that are available? And I'm talking municipality contracts for entire city removal of some of the smaller areas. It's schools. It's amazing the size of contracts since they created this syndicate that these businesses across the country have been able to get. So that's a couple of different ideas just to kind of give you an example of those things that you want to be looking into and considering when you're looking for teammates and stuff. And so you have, as one of your handouts, 10 key teaming tips. As normal, when I talk, I go all over the board, so I didn't go in line with these 10. However, we covered all of the subjects pretty much. And so just briefly running down the 10 tips, we talked first about evaluating the team itself. Who is your team? What is the market you're trying to branch into? What market is less served? Look at all things that you would when marketing and developing your own company, because all you're trying to do is take it to the next level. You may not be of a size where you can afford to purchase more equipment or take on a new service or your product. So you're looking for teaming that's going to take you to that level. And that's item 2, strategically assessing your market. Target specific companies that are going to be your best partner and research them. Research, and they're going to be researching you, so make sure that you are ready to go into a partnership. Meet initially, as we discussed. Pay close attention to your intuition during that, but also make sure you've got that non-disclosure, non-compete sign so everyone is relaxed when they're talking. And be clear on, as you're developing this team, that division of labor at that point in time and of the management over certain contracts. And so that's all things that you're going to be putting into a teaming agreement that you'll sign off on. The more of this teaming agreement that you can draft ahead of time, then you can take it to your own individual attorneys so that you can look to see, they can look it over for your safety, but they don't have to draft it for you. They can just comment back. You can come back together as a team and discuss any comments that your attorneys may have had. It's well worth having a review from an attorney. There's also services out there, if you don't have an attorney, but you have any sort of a prepaid legal for businesses. I do know that there is some fabulous programs that way, and they will review contracts of a specific nature too and comment back. So there's all kinds of ways as small businesses you can still afford to do it and do it right to protect yourself. And so there's items on 8 that you'll want to look at to include in the agreement, and basically look over how it is that you can save money overall as a team moving forward. You're going to want to create your own plan as that team. You're going to want to create your own new vision as that team. And you're going to want to actually implement it in a different manner, but it has to be synergistic with the way you operate.